Thank you so much. First of all, let me thank the men and women behind me who are the lifeblood of this incredible fire department. It is a pleasure to be here with the finest and best equipped fire department in the United States, if not the world. But we can show you all the equipment, we can tell you about the training, we can go over the tactics, we can review budgets, but this comes down to the bravery of real human beings, of flesh and blood that are here every single day protecting us. Those who swear on our Constitution to protect us, to protect our property, our families, our people, and our lives. And so let me begin by thanking them, reminding them in the heat not to lock their knees. When you get this many people, one always goes down, but that is not our goal today. I also want to thank the extraordinary leaders beside me here, our council members who are here, Council Member Monica Rodriguez, who chairs our Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Paul Koretz, who is also a stalwart partner in all things having to do with public safety and represents much of the hillside areas. Councilmember Rue is imminent, and perfect timing, a great intro, Councilmember Bob Blumenfield, who did a really amazing job last summer when we had the fires that came to the edge of our city. His staff and he did amazing work, not just assisting Angelenos, but people from neighboring communities who came to shelters in his district, and I want to thank him again for that. And of course, Chief Terrazas, who has really shown himself to be the most innovative fire chief in America. When I hired him, I knew he was the only chief who had both an Emmy and a patent, but I didn't know that that creativity would continue. And he represents a command staff, Chiefs Association, and others who are really doing the job, as well as the rank and file, who, as I mentioned, are the best in the country. Working together, we keep taking steps forward in this department. After the Great Recession, where we saw devastating cuts to this department, I made a pledge to the men and women of this department and to the residents of this city that we would restore that strength and that this department would never be second to anyone. We've built a more diverse LAFD that reflects the face of the city. We've equipped firefighters with state-of-the-art technology so that they're one step ahead of the flames. And today we're unveiling a product of those ongoing efforts, the department's 5th new Augusta Westland 139 helicopter, as well as an Erickson air crane, which we contract each year ahead of the fire season. But you can see the rest of the equipment that we have here too. Both of those 2 aircraft went into service on August 1st. We used to say that the fire season was just a few months. With climate change, we're seeing that calendar stretch farther and farther out. This equipment, as well as the rest of the equipment you see here, will be on the front lines protecting the lives and property of Angelenos throughout the fire season. You'll hear from Chief Terrazas shortly, but these are exceptionally capable aircraft, with the AW-139 helicopter able to cruise at high speeds even with its 480-gallon water tank completely filled. And the air crane can haul 2,650 gallons of retardant capable of stopping flames right in their tracks, and we saw some of that just last summer. In a city like ours, where wildfires have long been a fact of life, where rising temperatures and drier weather demand a better response, where we see a longer fire season, more fire deaths throughout our state, and more intense flames, I always say, just ask a firefighter whether climate change is real. They're on the front lines. But our focus isn't limited to just putting out fires. We're working hard to prevent fires as well. So today I'm announcing an important update that my colleagues on the City Council will soon consider, and that they are leading on as well. And I want to give a special shout out to Council Members Blumenfield and Rodriguez for their leadership and support. As it stands now, law enforcement professionals in Los Angeles have limited recourse when it comes to moving people out of the brush on days when the fire risk is highest and making sure that they don't inadvertently start fires. And often those individuals are homeless Angelenos who are living in encampments. That's not new in the last few years. We've seen that for the last few decades. But this common sense update to our laws will allow us and change, giving our public safety professionals the authority to reduce the risk of a fire that could spread and keep us all out of harm's way. Once the ordinance is adopted, and I hope it will be done swiftly, law enforcement will be able to give direct notice to individuals living in fire danger zones that they must move. That means that on these hot red flag days that come up during the summertime and increasingly year-round, we can now take a major step towards reducing the likelihood of encampment fires like we saw in 2017 with the Screwball Fire and last month in the Sepulveda Basin. This is a common sense change, addressing one of the most dangerous parts of this ongoing homelessness crisis. We are here not to address homelessness, but to end it. But while we work on that, These encampment fires don't just have dire consequences for homeless Angelenos that live in remote brush areas. They also threaten to leave more Angelenos homeless when their lives and properties are consumed by flames. So this urgently needed update will protect both neighboring communities and homeless Angelenos, a necessary addition to my homeless encampment fire task force that we launched following the Screwball fire. On these hot and dry days, the fire department does the following. They survey high-risk brush areas, windshield survey it's called. And if a hazardous homeless encampment is identified, that information is relayed to our war room, which we call the Unified Homeless Response Center, which is staffed 5 days a week during business hours with multiple departments tackling issues of homelessness around the city. And an outreach team and other critical resources are deployed from the countywide Homeless Services Authority. But progress is not coming fast enough, and we see that with steady increases in homeless-related fires since the fire department began tracking this in 2017, that we must turn the tide even further and beat the flames by moving faster, and this ordinance will do just that. You know, the work of building a more resilient city is not just with the fire department. That rests on all of us. And my message for Angelenos is that you all have a role to play. We have to stay vigilant. If you see smoke in your area, call 911 immediately. And you can use the 311 app to report non-emergency concerns. If you want information about how to check your property, report a hazard, or contact the LAFD brush unit, whose great work I deeply appreciate, you can learn more at lafd.org. And if you feel that you or your home may be in danger, please listen to evacuation warnings. We see too many people in too many fires saying, I can handle this with my garden hose on my roof by myself. That is not a recipe for success. Make sure you have all your critical papers and your valuables organized so you're ready and set when the go order to evacuate materializes. And have a conversation with your loved ones. We've been saying this since the Ridgecrest earthquakes visited us, that it's a good wake-up call to have that plan, to meet your neighbors, to know who has the special needs, who has the pet, whose child might be living with autism, the senior who is isolated, and get to know them so that you can be a good neighbor and help them, whether it's a fire, an earthquake, or any other emergency as well. And as always, you can sign up to get free emergency alerts on your phone by texting the word READY to 888-777. You know, fire awareness and prevention is a shared responsibility, and I know working together with the brave women and men of the Los Angeles Fire Department, we will make Los Angeles the safest city in America. With that, let me turn it over to my colleague who herself is the daughter of a firefighter, somebody who long before she became a council member was working on public facilities, new fire stations as a public works commissioner, and now is the chair of our public safety committee overseeing both our fire, police, and EMD emergency management departments. Please welcome Monica Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. And as the mayor mentioned, you know, it was back in 2017 when I first took office that we quickly realized the imminent dangers that presented our communities as a result of the wildfire that broke out with the La Tuna fire and then subsequently the Creek fire, both of which were the largest of their time wildfires in the city's history. But it was through that process that we identified that we also were confronting very different circumstances when it came to these wildfires. In the case of the La Tuna fire, we had an environment that wasn't as wind-driven and thus allowing our air support to be far more effective in combating those wildfires. Then subsequently in the Creek fire, with such an incredible intense velocity of wind, we were unable to use our air support, thus putting more of our fire personnel in more imminent danger, helping to mitigate a lot of those risks. And it was actually in that circumstance that we had to evacuate nearly half of my district. But more importantly, what we discovered that in those two examples, what we needed to do was be far more aggressive in helping to mitigate and protect our neighborhoods, particularly our most vulnerable hillside communities, from these imminent wildfire dangers. And so it's through the collaborative effort that we have been doing with the mayor's office, with my colleague, Councilmember Blumenfield, and the city attorney's office, that we have been very aggressive in developing an ordinance that will help to mitigate these future risks, working and identifying the most imminent threats when it comes to encampments, so that we can protect our hillsides, protect our families and our properties for many of the Angelenos that have been exposed to these dangers. And so it is through the work of the Public Safety Committee, which will be held next week, that we will be having the conversation over the ordinance and the protocols. We know that many of these efforts, when we were working collectively and collaboratively, both with the LA City Police Department, our firefighters, our LASA outreach workers, that we can help mitigate these risks, getting individuals out of these potential hazardous environments and getting them placed into areas that are less threatening both to Angelenos and to themselves in these high fire severity hazard zones. So I am grateful for the collaborative effort that we've been leading in the city of Los Angeles with all of these different partners, and I look forward to the ensuing conversation that we will have next week in Public Safety Committee to adopt and move forward this ordinance that will better prepare all of our responding agencies to assure that we can be successful in mitigating these risks for Angelenos and their properties going forward. And with that, you know, I again, as someone who has represented an area, and this is unfortunately a new normal in California where we're experiencing these severe wildfires, it's incredibly important that Angelenos take the initiative, as the mayor mentioned, to identify, you know, do their brush clearance. That's an important way of mitigating some of the imminent fire risk and assuring that it doesn't spread. But reporting these things, when you see it, please report it and notify us. When you see imminent threats, it is helpful to our city agencies to be far more responsive and help make sure that Angelenos are in greater protected states. So thank you very much, and with that I'd like to turn it over to my colleague on the Los Angeles City Council, Councilmember Bob Blumenfield.
Great, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, Chief Terrazas, everyone for being here today to both to celebrate the fact that we have some amazing new equipment and to remind people about the dangers of the fire season. And whether it's the new normal, as Councilwoman Rodriguez said, or it's the new abnormal, as the former governor said, the reality is there's no scientific question. Fire season is longer and more intense than ever. Last year, the Woolsey fire was a painful wake-up call on that. We had a massive emergency knocking at our door. Almost 300,000 people were evacuated. Many came to the Red Cross shelters, as the mayor mentioned, that were in our city and in my district. I met with so many people who had minutes to leave their homes, not knowing what, if anything, they could come back to. They left without things like phone chargers or dog food or a towel or blanket or toothpaste. But we came together as a community. We were inspired by their plight and how to help them. But we need to be prepared, and we need to prevent these kinds of things from happening. As was mentioned, in addition to some of the legislation was mentioned, just recently I introduced, along with Councilwoman Rodriguez, a measure to expand fire-resistant building codes, which are only applicable now in the dense population centers like downtown LA and Hollywood. We want to make sure that we take these higher standards and expand them to our risk areas like the hills and other population centers in the San Fernando Valley. We know the fire is coming. We have to be smart about it, and we have the technology to build better. The motion also requires fire protection plans to help ensure safe construction sites when the structures are the most valuable and often can create those fires. From the Da Vinci fire a few years ago to the horrific Woolsey fire last year, Angelenos know that fires can happen in the blink of an eye, and they can change your life. Doesn't matter if you live in a tall apartment building downtown or the hills in the West Valley, it's imperative that we use every tool in our tool chest to make sure our high-risk communities are as safe as possible. Also, I was proud to introduce the measures that we were talking about in terms of restrictions in our high fire hazard severity zones. All it takes to start a fire is one of these areas is mishandling a campfire or a simple mistake. It's been difficult to prevent people from living in these areas that are often quite remote and hard to patrol. Like we saw recently in the Sepulveda Basin, situations can turn deadly in a matter of moments. Similar to driving, these areas are blind spots for fire safety, and it's our collective goal to eliminate these blind spots to prevent future accidents from starting in these areas. and there's a simple administrative fix. Rather than posting hundreds or thousands of signs, we just want to change the law so authorities have the right to give in-person notices to people who are dwelling in these areas. It would not only save taxpayer money in two ways, by not having to create all these signs, which would also be an environmental hazard of themselves, but by saving money on lawsuits and saving money on fires in the end of the day. It's not about moving homeless people, it's about ensuring that people are safe and that they're not living in areas that are basically a tinderbox. It's wonderful that this motion will be heard next week in Councilwoman Rodriguez's committee. Whether it's an earthquake or fire, we need to take the steps to know that when those fires hit, whether it's the big one or whatever it is, we have a plan of action. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for your focus on emergency preparedness and all your support for the legislation to make that happen, for the amazing fire department that we have that is on it, that is, as he mentioned, is cutting edge, and to my colleagues on the City Council who are there ready to implement and pass these innovations to help keep us safer. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce my colleague, Mr. David Rue, who will take it from here. He is a colleague just to the east, represents Sherman Oaks among other places, goes over the hill, and has also been a champion for preparedness. Mr. Rue.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Blumenfield, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the greatest fighting force in the world, our Los Angeles Fire Department, for your incredible work to keep us safe. We are all here today to make it loud and clear that wildfire season is underway. Los Angeles is at the highest risk of fires in the months ahead, and we all must be prepared, stay vigilant to stay safe. We are lucky in Los Angeles to have the incredible Los Angeles Fire Department and Chief Terrazas working day and night to help keep us safe.
Heat is one of our enemies in addition to the brush fire. Heat causes firefighters to have heat exhaustion, maybe even heat stroke, which is life-threatening. So I apologize for the interruption. I'd like to introduce Councilmember Rue.
Thank you, Chief. And I just wanted to echo those thoughts. What we saw was one of our highly trained and top-notch, very well-fit firefighter who went down on a heat stroke. So that reminds us that in the event of a fire, when our emergency personnel comes to your home and asks you to evacuate, it might seem okay then, but in a blink of an eye, the situation can get worse. So please listen to emergency responders. If they ask you to evacuate, evacuate. It may not seem hot now, it might seem okay, but in a matter of seconds, it could turn deadly. So I just wanted to say, I just wanted to continue and just reiterate what everybody has said behind me about all the different works that we've been working together, all the different legislation to further for fire safety, as well as continued legislation, better protocols, and higher standards to keep our communities safe. But again, I want to reiterate that the work always starts with the community. We all still remember the devastating fires of 2 years ago, which caused evacuations, environmental damage, and property loss. When disaster strikes, the best line of defense is a prepared neighborhood. We can't promise that a devastating fire won't happen again. In fact, fire seems to be becoming more frequent and stronger every year. What we can do is get prepared. Know your neighborhood evacuation plan. Create one if you don't have one. Equip your family with the tools you need, and make sure brush and debris is clear from your property, especially if you live in the hillsides. And I want to repeat again what the mayor said. All the information that you need is available at LAFD.org. Please do your part to keep your family safe, our city safe, and help those heroes at the Los Angeles Fire Department get the job done. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to ask Councilmember Koretz to come forward to say a few words, and then we'll hear from Chief Terrazas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And let's give a big hand to our first responders that deal with heat, deal with fire, deal with every difficulty that you could, and represent us in an incredible way. I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for always leading the city towards emergency preparedness first. I want to thank our entire hardworking LA Fire Department and other first responders, and especially Chief Terrazas, who oversees an enormous department and a complex region as Los Angeles, and makes protecting the lives of 4 million people look easy. I started out this year with the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, touring the devastation of the Woolsey fire burn area to compare notes between hurricane and wildfire damage. We know that climate change doesn't cause these events, it just makes them much, much worse. We went from seeing the Seminole Springs mobile home park to Malibu homes and neighborhoods with $10 million views, and what I took away is this: no matter how expensive or how humble your home, it looks about the same when it's been burned to the ground. The heroes of that fire, and truly every fire, are our first responders, whose tireless work for days and days saved the lives and homes of our friends and neighbors. And when the Skirball Bel Air fire happened, I introduced an emergency motion to create a task force in high severity zones to respond quickly and to this issue, and that has helped to get us where we are today with the motions being introduced. Now that brings us to today. While the fire season seems to be a year-round prospect these days, the most dangerous months are squarely ahead of us. And since I represent a fairly large portion of the hillside communities, I want to speak directly to my constituents in Council District 5 and elsewhere. If you haven't done so yet, get your brush clearance done and make sure your workers follow the guidelines Council has established. Don't clear brush on red flag days, and use clearance equipment that will not throw sparks. Carry with you or have nearby the appropriate type of fire extinguisher and a working cell phone so you can dial 911 in the occasion of flame or smoke. So many fires are human caused, and they could be avoided by simply using a lot of common sense. Now, if you're going to live in these fire danger areas, be sure to spend that extra money to harden your home against flying embers. Have in place a wildfire action plan with your family and practice. CAL FIRE has a helpful Ready, Set, Go campaign at readyforfire.org. That's, I'm sorry, I misspoke. That's readyforwildfire.org that can help you figure out what to do. Finally, pay attention. Sign up for emergency alerts. Know who the emergency preparedness person is on Twitter for your area and follow them, and go when it's time to go. Don't linger. Don't think you can fight the fire yourselves. You can't, and it just endangers you and your family. With your help, as we face larger and more dangerous fire seasons, we can all together make Los Angeles more safe, prepared, resilient, and with a stronger sense of community, even in the face of our ever-worsening climate change and climate emergency. And now I'd like to introduce Chief Terrazas, who has proven to be a true miracle worker, the best fire chief in this country, and who I'm personally grateful for his handling of the Skirball Bel Air fire, which by all rights should have been much worse and could have cost hundreds of millions of dollars in property loss and lives, and was not because of his incredible planning and implementation. Chief Terrazas.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Member. Thank you, Mayor Garcetti, and all the council members here this morning for supporting the world's greatest fire department. I'm very proud when I hear elected officials refer to our department that way. I've always believed it. In the last few years, I believe we've proven we are the world's finest fire department. Once again this summer, we are facing a significant brush fire risk, but the peak of our brush season is still to come during the months of November and December for us here in Southern California. As you recall, last year's devastating Woolsey fire occurred in November, and in 2017 we had the Thomas, the Creek, and the Skirball fires. This year's wet winter brought abundant green grass and yellow flowers to Southern California. However, due to the heat of summer, these grasses are beginning to dry out and to turn brown. More dried out grass means more potential for fires to start and more challenging to extinguish. When these fuel conditions mix with high temperatures and Santa Ana wind conditions, we have a very dangerous combination that supports fast-moving brush fires. Therefore, the Los Angeles Fire Department strongly encourages the people of Los Angeles to be prepared. To assist with that preparation, I encourage you to go to our website at LAFD.org. There you will find information about our Ready, Set, Go evacuation program, our brush clearance program, and our red flag restricted parking program. We also encourage you to sign up for the free Notify LA emergency alert system by texting the word READY to 888-777. In addition to this public education effort, the Los Angeles Fire Department continues to train and prepare for the peak of our brush season. What you see behind me are the apparatus that we could dispatch to a reported brush fire within the city of Los Angeles. The apparatus includes our traditional Type 1 engine companies, as well as our lime green Type 3 engine companies, which are capable to go off-road and have 4x4 capability. What you see next to me is a firefighter in his wildland brush personal protective equipment. In the past few years, we've been incrementally adding to the firefighter ensemble to increase his effectiveness and his or her safety. Starting with the helmet, you'll notice it's a different shape than our traditional fire helmet. It has a wider brim to provide more shade from the sun. It's also weighs less than our traditional helmet. We have the brush goggles, which provide a tight seal against the face, which is extremely critical under high wind conditions. We have the brush shirt and the brush pants, which are made of lightweight material to reduce heat stress. And our new addition is the brush backpack. The backpack carries our emergency fire shelter located down here, and which is our option of last resort if there's no other way to escape a fast-moving fire. It also includes our hydration pack. It's a 3-quart hydration system so our firefighters can remain hydrated so they can avoid heat exhaustion or even heat stroke. Down on his feet we have brush boots, specifically designed to provide more traction during their efforts in the rugged terrain. Also recently we have the new Motorola 8000 radio. It has the capability to communicate with fire departments throughout the state, amongst many other capabilities. These items have been purchased through our annual budget, through grants, and through generous donations from our LAFD Foundation. Thank you. I appreciate it. One of the keys to mitigating a brush fire is the use of helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. The firefighting aircraft of a brush response are designed to knock down brush fires as soon as possible to limit the number of lives and homes that are threatened. The LAFD's current fleet of helicopters consists of 5 Type 2 medium water dropping helicopters and 2 smaller Type 3 helicopters, which we use for aerial reconnaissance and command and control. One of our medium water dropping helicopters is a recent addition to our fleet. Our new helicopter has been designated with the call sign of Fire 1. It is a 2019 AgustaWestland AW-139, which we placed into service just a few weeks ago at a cost of $18 million. Our helicopters are capable of dropping 480 gallons of water per drop and are available for response 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. After the sun goes down, night operations will be conducted with our pilots using night vision goggles, allowing us to conduct aerial firefighting throughout the night. In addition to our fleet of helicopters, Mayor Garcetti and our council members have continued to reinforce public safety by approving a $4 million 150-day contract with Erickson for a Type 1 helitanker during the most critical part of the year-round brush season. The Erickson air crane that you see behind me, to my left, your right, is capable of dropping 2,600 gallons of water per drop. It is staged here at Van Nuys Airport until the end of the year and available during daylight hours to augment the LAFD's firefighting aircraft. This unique aviation resource will provide a rapid assault to any wildland fire that threatens lives and property in and near the city of Los Angeles. In addition, the excellent partnership between the LA City and LA County Fire Department continues. Together, our two fire departments dispatch the largest fleet of initial attack aviation resources in the United States. A first alarm response to a brush fire that threatens homes in the city or county of Los Angeles can include up to 7 medium helicopters, 1 smaller recon helicopter, 1 helitanker, and 2 fixed-wings tankers, which will be here September 1st. We also call them Super Scoopers. That is, the Super Scooper is leased by LA County, and it's a 90-day contract. They will also be located here at Van Nuys Airport. And finally, and critically important, is the issue of drones. Drones compromise the safety of air crews and pilots and the ability of our firefighting aircraft to make water drops over brush fires. It's absolutely critical that no matter how tempting it may be, operators must not fly their unmanned aircraft anywhere near a brush fire. A drone that collides with a helicopter rotor blade can cause a helicopter to crash. So remember, if you fly, we can't. In closing, your Los Angeles Fire Department is prepared for the busy brush season ahead of us, and with cooperation from the public through preparedness efforts, I'm confident that we can accomplish our mission to protect the lives and property of the people of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Finally, for our Spanish language media, let me say a few words. Buenos días. Y gracias a este equipo, especialmente el jefe del Departamento de Policía, de Bomberos. I just gave you a cross. It was because we were getting hazed by the LAPD helicopter during this. Let me start that again. Buenos días. Gracias a este equipo, especialmente el jefe del Departamento de los Bomberos, estos miembros y líderes del Consejo Municipal también. Y hoy estamos presentando el nuevo helicóptero Augusta Westland 139 del Departamento de Bomberos, junto con un grúa Aria Erickson, comprado por el departamento también. Estos dos aeronaves han estado en servicio desde el 1 de agosto y estarán disponibles para proteger las vidas y la propiedad de angelinos. Este es el mejor departamento en este país, sí, y también, en mi opinión, en el mundo. Pero adicionalmente estoy anunciando una actualización importante que mis colegas en el Consejo Municipal pronto revisarán. Actualmente, en los días cuando el riesgo de incendio es lo más alto, los oficiales tienen acceso limitado ahora para sacar a personas de la maleza y para asegurar que no se enciendan fuegos. Y con frecuencia, estos individuos están sin hogar y viviendo en campamentos. ¿I continue? I just want to make sure the notification came. Este cambio es lógico, dándoles a los profesionales de seguridad pública la autoridad de reducir el riesgo de extender un incendio y mantenernos seguros. Construir un Los Ángeles más resistente al fuego requiere el esfuerzo de todos de nosotros. Si ves humo o fuego en tu área, llame a 911 inmediatamente. Y si quieres más información sobre cómo evaluar tu propiedad o reportar un riesgo, visite LAFD.org. Muchísimas gracias. With that, happy to answer questions. If you have any. Okay. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you getting the word out. Thank you.